Hey, everybody, Kevin here with Pursuing Pixels, and welcome back to another edition of Save It for the Cast. And you know the drill by now. I'm going to be kicking the ball over to John, Randall, and I in just a little bit. We got the whole gang here and kind of all over the map, having a little like video game potpourri conversation. We're just kind of bouncing off, one game to another. Talk about that new game from Nomada Studios. A lot of stuff that we haven't even played yet. Just kind of like discussion. There's, I think it's called Neva from Nomada Studios that made Gree. And then we talk about a little Devolver and then Limbo, about that new Braid anniversary, Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, the new Fantasy Life game that still hasn't come out yet and might never come out, along with like obsessive fandoms about certain types of games like Hollow Knight or Celeste and stuff like that. We just kind of go all over the map. So we'll kick it over to that in just a second here, or just a few minutes, I guess I should say. But yeah, I'll start things off with some of the stuff that I've been playing, and I've been kind of scooping up some physical copies of games as of late. And I guess I'll start off with a shout out to a game that I mentioned actually on the last Save It for the Cast, Nuclear Blaze. And it's a game that I've talked about a couple times on the podcast before, or at least one other time, and have done some videos of. And I ended up playing all the way through, like polishing off the last little bit of that game that I hadn't beaten again. I had beaten the game before, but polished off the rest of that on Switch here so that I could unlock the Hold My Beer mode. And then I fired up recording a video for that and played like the first maybe, I don't know, half hour to an hour of the Hold My Beer campaign. And I just really want to give a shout out to this like game, because there's just, again, I mentioned last week, like the kid mode, which totally like removes jumping and aiming your firefighting or aiming your hose and whatever, and you just like auto aim and you basically just have to rescue the kittens. Whereas in like the main campaign, the kittens are like kind of like almost an extra challenge that you have to go rescue, and then otherwise you have to, if you want to and if you can find them, because they're actually pretty tricky to find sometimes. Even when you can see them, it's like, how do I get to that one? I really don't know. But then the firefighting obviously is way more tricky in like the main campaign. And then in the Hold My Beer mode, it turns it into like this. It's really cool too. The reason I wanted to give it a second shout out here, or another shout out here, is because this campaign, it plays out within the same like setting, or the same like map, if you will. Like the whole game is kind of like stitched together as if it's not a Metroidvania, but it's like one map that you just continuously progress through in the main campaign. So right at the beginning of the game, the main game and the Hold My Beer mode, you like jump out of this helicopter. But in the Hold My Beer mode, you kind of like smash through the floor because there's like an extra explosion or something like that. So you go like underneath and you unlock the dodge roll ability right away. It's like the first thing you get here, which like you don't get that until kind of late game in the main campaign. And then you even unlock like an axe, which you can smash down doors in like one swoop instead of like having to smash into them one or two or three times. Some doors have different strengths, I think, or maybe they're all just two regular hits if you don't have the axe. But nonetheless, like, so there's definitely going to be some new mechanics in this game. You unlock the ability to firefight and aim while you're on the ladder, and aim your hose, like, is like really kind of like in the main campaign I mentioned last time, like it really kind of slowly introduces the new abilities of your firefighting. Whereas this just is like kind of throwing things right at you, and again throwing some new things at you. And it's just so cool how like you'll think you're on like the normal path again, and then there'll be like another explosion or something else that happens that just like totally opens up a new area that you kind of saw before. Like there's new turrets now that you could see while you were going through the main campaign, but now they're activated. And you can still hose those down or turn them off with some kind of switch in some cases, or turn on, like there's a new type of sprinkler that I've seen of some kind. I don't know exactly how those work. I got to a section where like the fire is just spreading like crazy. And these like new sprinklers are more on a timer. You can only use them for like a limited amount of time. So I really think you got to like puzzle your path through here. But you can tweak the difficulty settings, like give yourself more, water ammunition, if you will. And stuff like that. And it even says right when you start up the Hold My Beer mode, it's like, don't be afraid to tweak the difficulty settings. And I really love how on the difficulty settings, like as you tweak things, and by default, I think the main campaign is at like 65%. And then as you tweak things and make it easier, it drops down. And then Hold My Beer mode is like all the way cranked up to 100. And by default, I didn't try tweaking anything because I was like, I want to see the true experience, but I very well may, based on just this section. Like I said, I'm only maybe a half hour into the campaign, though to be fair, the whole game is like, 2 hours, 3 hours, the main campaign, in and of itself. So I don't know how long this Hold My Beer mode is going to be. But yeah, just really, really love this game. So I wanted to give it another quick shout out. And then two other games that I wanted to give a shout out to that I also picked up physical copies of on Switch. The first one here I wanted to mention is Ufouria, the Saga 2. And this is sort of like another one of those weird reimagining remakes. I'm not going to put it anywhere near on the caliber of like the Wild Guns, Pocky and Rocky, Shadow of the Ninja, even that I mentioned recently that I wasn't quite as big of a fan of as the other three. And the Ninja Saviors, Ninja Warriors. I know we just talk about these games ad nauseum, or at least I do. Randall's the one that kind of turned me onto these, or at least turned me onto the Ninja Warriors, Ninja Saviors one, and that really just put me over the hump of like, okay, I'm just obsessed with these because I wasn't even aware of that game, and now I just love, these games and whatnot. But this is from a totally different developer, these reimaginings, and I couldn't get that sentence out there. But again, this is sort of like a reimagining of a game that actually never came out on the NES in North America. It was released in Europe and I think Japan and other regions, but I've actually played this one because it's been released on downloadable platforms over the years, I think starting with like the Wii Virtual Console, that being just Ufouria, the Saga. And it's a really charming, especially the original and this one here as well, really charming like Metroidvania adventure with like, really light combat, if you will. It's more of like a hop and bop platformer. You get a few different characters that you can swap between, actually 4 different characters that you can swap between that each have slightly different abilities. And it's been a little while since I've played that original one. They've re-released it now properly as like a retro, just re-release for like $10 or something digitally that you can download. But this remake kind of like takes things in a new direction slightly. It's like adds some light procedural generation elements to the mix. Like it's not necessarily a roguelike, but you kind of start out in like a hub zone and then it totally changes the art direction as well, which I guess I should have mentioned right off the top. But it's like kind of like almost like a Yoshi's Crafted World, Woolly World kind of vibe. Not quite on that level of presentation. Like I don't like it quite as much as the look of those games. But nonetheless, it's going for like kind of like a felt, handmade, handcrafted kind of look. And it definitely is a really charming looking game. And the music's really great. It reminds me a lot of like, at least the main theme from the original game is like the same, obviously with the new instrumentation and everything. But nonetheless, I've been really enjoying playing this one. For whatever reason, it's like, I don't necessarily even fully understand exactly what I'm doing. You start out in like this hub zone at your main character's house, if you will. And then there's a few branching paths at the very beginning of the game. There's like a UFO that crashes and then it kind of like guides you. Okay, go this way first, check out this area, explore it to the end, and then check out this area and explore it to the end. And the main thing that it's doing with the procedural generation is that every time you go into a new area or go into a zone, if you will, or an area of the map, it like procedurally generates the little platforming section that you have to get through. I will say I've noticed that like it's not all that different every time, but nonetheless, there's like a few collectibles and like it's a little bit like grindy to a degree. Like you have to like go back to this vending machine in the hub world. And you have to like, for example, like I found one of the characters that you need to unlock, but like I had to buy that character a green tea from the vending machine, but I had to find enough of these, like, they're like some kind of cans or canisters, that are like these hidden collectibles in each zone. And it shows you how many there are in each area. And I was like, okay, I haven't collected enough. And that's like collecting enough of those are what, quote unquote, restocks the machine. And it tells you, okay, you need 7 total to unlock the tea. And then now I can buy the tea with my coins for this character. So it gets a little grindy and it even gets a little bit like, I don't want to say janky, but like a lot of times at that vending machine, you're buying like multiple things at once. And then it does like a little like dialogue cutscene with like one of the characters explaining to you what you just bought or what you just unlocked in the world map. Like you can buy like springs that then open up on the various stages that then let you access new areas of those zones. That are, again, procedurally generated each time. But it's like, for whatever reason, it's just got the hooks in me. It's like kind of not all that challenging and it's just super charming. It's a little bit dialogue heavy at times, but you can breeze your way right through it. But I'm really having a good time with that one. And I'm really happy to see even like on the actual physical game, like cartridge on the on the case. there's a big sticker or a little sticker on the top that says Sunsoft is back. And I just love seeing some of these retro studios like getting back in action, whatever means. I don't know the history or like what's going on exactly with Sunsoft, but it's been cool to see them. Like I know they just released that Gimmick 2 as well. So it's just been really cool to see them like coming back to life here. And the last game that I wanted to talk about here is Mario and Luigi Brothership, which I actually ended up going to the store the other day. I went to Best Buy and they didn't have any copies, at least that I could see. And then I went over to Target and I had to wait like 20 minutes. It felt like it probably wasn't quite that long, but like to get somebody's attention to like unlock the cage and grab the game for me. But I was like, I'm already here. I had a few other things that I needed to grab. So I was like, I just want to, get this game while I'm here. And I ended up grabbing a little Bowser Jr. plushie while I was at it that it just sucked me in. I was like, man, the bib and like the crayon colored look of that. I don't know. They just did a great job on this plushie. But nonetheless, this Mario and Luigi Brothership, it's been a little while since I've last played a Mario and Luigi game. I know they've been kind of cranking them out and even cranking out some like re-releases on 3DS, but I've really only played and I've never beaten any of them. But I've played a little bit of Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga and a little bit of Mario and Luigi Partners in Time, the first one being on Game Boy Advance and then the second one being on the DS. And then there's been, I think, 2 or 3 other releases in the series, but this is the first one that's actually on a console. I guess the Switch is still like a pseudo handheld, if you will, but this is the first one with like a proper console, full $60 retail game release, if you will. And it definitely is packing the punch. I'm really, really loving this game so far. I've only played the first like half hour, so really just getting into like the opening bits. Like I just kind of like in a true opening tutorial fashion, you start out with just Mario, and then you got to kind of like find Luigi. You end up going you find Luigi on this like ship that's sailing, which if you've seen any of the trailers is kind of like this like massive ship that's almost like an island, but it seems like that's going to be like your almost like hub world. I think it's called Ship Shape Island, and I really am just loving like the humor, the presentation. I really loved as soon as I saw the trailer, it's got almost like a not cell shaded style, but it's like almost like a suit. It's like it's in 3D, but the characters almost have like a 3D, 2D hand drawn like anime style to them. I don't know. I really, not anime quite, but like, I don't know. It's just, I really love how vibrant the game looks. And then the combat right off the bat, especially once I unlock Luigi, like again, in true Mario and Luigi or even like Paper Mario fashion, the like action combat inputs and stuff like that are just so satisfying. And this game really kind of ups the ante. Like as soon as I unlock Luigi, you get the ability. So like right now I haven't found the hammer, which I'm assuming I'm going to get at some point. And I've seen some really crazy like brother attacks in the trailers and stuff like that. I've tried to keep myself kind of spoiler free. As soon as I saw like the trailer was looking awesome, I was like, okay, I'm not going to watch any more about this game. But like, for example, like when you jump on an enemy, you as long as one of the other brothers is still alive, like for example, Mario jumps, then you got to press A to land on the enemy just like you normally would, and then you spring off of them, and then Luigi like kind of like runs up and then almost does like a volleyball set, and then you press B to time that perfectly, and then if you do, he launches Mario even higher into the air, and then you time your landing again and do even more damage. If you whiff it, then Luigi just kind of like falls back, and you still land on the enemy, but you just do like minimal damage. And then of course you can also dodge the attacks, and each character has their own button, Mario being A, Luigi being B. But I really like on like the overworld, you can jump individually with each character, but like for example, if you're running over a gap or something like that, or jumping over a gap, I should say, with Mario leading the way, if you jump over it, Luigi will just like automatically jump over that gap and follow you. So it doesn't get as tricky. Like for example, in Partners in Time on the DS, you're playing as Mario and Luigi and Baby Mario and Baby Luigi. So they literally at some points have a face button assigned to each character, or each character is assigned to one of the 4 face buttons. I guess that's just repeating myself, but it just gets really tricky. You're like rolling your thumb to clear these jumps perfectly. And in this game, it seems like it's kind of like alleviated that stress, although that was kind of fun as well. But it did get like in some of the trickier sections, got a little bit like frustrating at times. But nonetheless, I'm just, like I said, I'm only a half an hour in, but I've been like laughing at the humor. They're like, you got to use your Luigi logic at times. Like you just like, he'll solve like a little puzzle for you or trigger some kind of little secret to collect some extra coins, or open a gate or something like that. But I'm just absolutely loving this game. It's been a little while since I've been like, oh man, I really want to grab this new, $60, AAA Nintendo game at full price right when it comes out. A lot of times I'm like, I'll wait and see how the reviews go. And then I'd lose my interest or I shouldn't say lose my interest, but just never get around to scooping them up. At least that's been the way I've been trending as of late. But nonetheless, I'm really happy I scooped this one up and really can't wait to play some of this one. I even might end up streaming some of the opening bits of this here because I'm really just having a good time, and it might just be fun to hang and play through some of this one and give me a little extra encouragement to plow through it. But nonetheless, I've done more than enough rambling here, and we've got a good chunk of conversation coming up here. Like I said, all over the map with all sorts of video game goodies. But yeah, I'll kick it over to John, Randall, and I here. And until next week, we'll catch you then, and take care. I'm kind of pumped that new, I don't think it's a sequel per se, but it's like the follow-up to that, or from that studio that made that game Gree.
Oh, yeah.
They just have a new game that came out. I think it's called like Neva or Neva or something like that. But yeah, I just saw that was out on Switch the other day.
Yeah, they got a bundle for it.
Yeah, that's how I saw it. I was like, what is this random game bundled with Gree? And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot they had a new game coming out.
That's pretty cool.
Gree came out a long time ago at this point too, I feel like.
Yeah, that was one of like the earlier, because I saw that this one was from Devolver, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that Devolver released that one. And I feel like it was in their earlier days before they were like more like, I mean, they still do, obviously they did this and they still do stuff like out of their wheelhouse, if you will, but like I feel like a lot of their stuff like leans into like the look at how violent this is, or look at how like over the top this is, or look at how
Nomada Studio is the name of it, or Nomada.
Yeah,
and like they have an aesthetic that they are working in, and I'm glad that they have like a consistent, like, I don't know, vibe or tone or whatever.
Yeah, I was.
This looks cool.
That's what makes me wonder if this one is like some kind of sequel or same universe or something like that.
I think they just have an art style. It's like, I was thinking of like Limbo and what's the other one? Inside.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like I don't think those are necessarily like contiguous, but they definitely are of a piece.
Yes,
for sure. Speaking of those games too, actually, I don't know, it's not quite in the same vein, but like Braid, they just released that new like 10th anniversary edition, I think.
I've been seeing a lot of 10th anniversary stuff come out.
It might have even been, no, it's not.
Is it only 10 years? That doesn't.
I was going to say it might even be 20th or 15th, maybe.
15th,
but that was like one of those early Xbox, 360 arcade games.
Right.
But that new edition like looks kind of, they like redid all the visuals. Like, I mean, it still like kind of looks the same if you're just looking at it from a distance, but it does, like when they show the details, you're like, oh man, they really like went all out. And then there's all sorts of like commentary and stuff, which, take it or leave it. I don't know if I'm ever even going to get around to that stuff, but they had it on sale for like $6 or $7 the other day, and I almost snagged it. But
could you imagine if they re-released like Donkey Kong Country using the full resolution images?
Oh my God.
Whoa. Yeah. That would be awesome.
I don't know why I've never thought of that before. Yeah, like as soon as you started to say that, I was like, oh my God.
Like they don't have to do anything. They don't have to change anything. Just change the rest.
HD. Yeah.
But I feel like it would look so weird. Like
it would be like Uncanny Valley kind of.
Oh yeah, real Uncanny Valley.
Especially when it runs at 20 frames per second on the Switch.
Oh my God.
Well, yeah.
It'd probably have that same look. It'd probably have that same kind of look as those Link to the Past. Or not, I always say Link to the Past.
Link's Awakening.
And then I always want to say Link Between Worlds when I want to correct myself. But yeah, Link's Awakening.
I've not looked at the, any gameplay footage of the new Zelda game because I'm holding out hope that there's going to be a new Switch and I'll be able to play it at just an upscaled version. And I don't want to be poisoned by knowledge.
I will say I watched gameplay footage and talked myself out of wanting that game just because like I just saw how like the menu systems work and like how tedious it looks to play for like the stuff that annoys me in games. And I was just like, there's just no way. There's no way. You literally just still get one. You can only equip one item at a time. No radial menu. You literally just have to pause the game and scroll through a list of every item in literally a row.
Gotcha. I did hear that it was
I was just like no.
A great translation of like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom to the 2D like space.
Okay.
I've heard that as well.
I could see that, especially maybe leaning more into the Tears of the Kingdom side of things with like the
puzzle solving stuff, and physics, sandboxy stuff.
The free form, yeah.
So
but yeah, I just
super
saw, I was just
interests
like,
me, but like, I don't know.
I thought at least they were going to give you like a radial menu or some, which even those kind of annoy me to be honest. But I was like, okay, at least you'll be able to maybe equip like 8 favorite things or something like that. And
I will say the way that Tears of the Kingdom prioritizes items as you use them by your most used items, I think is a really like elegant solution. So if it does,
I think it does that. I think it does that too. I will say.
Then that
I believe
might
it did
be,
have it organized. But then don't you think you just end up using the same stuff all the time or no?
No, it's still specific, but like the ones that are more all-rounder or more ones that use like have more utility will just kind of naturally rise
front.
to the top.
Yeah. I think in Tears of the Kingdom, that's especially useful when you're talking about auto sorting of raw materials for what you would use the most, right? And you're always making a fire with, you know, the firewood bundle and the whatever, the flint.
Or using like Keese eyeballs to make homing arrows, or like Keese wings to make arrows fly farther and make them into like sniper bullets.
I learned 2 new things right there.
Oh my God, it's so good. Everything's so good. I've been one of the reasons why I've been playing a lot of different games is because I haven't had anything that's like grabbed me recently. So I've been trying a lot of different things, and like there's just this voice in the back of my head is like, you can go back to Tears of the Kingdom.
Like, yeah, you guys both kind of like not abandoned that game, but like kind of like you know, you just veered off into other stuff after getting pretty hooked into it. I think
I started that second file without beating the first file.
Yep. That's what happens when you start a second file in like 100-hour plus game, especially the way you play them.
God,
it's so good.
What a freak. Play games normally.
Hey, as long as you're having fun, man, that's all that matters. But yeah, back to, not to like harp on the Echoes of Wisdom thing, but like I was like just thinking about like I already get annoyed in like the old school Zelda games, like when you can just equip like one item plus your sword, like even just regular. So I was like, okay, this game seems like you're going to be switching even more than normal. So I was like, I just don't want to deal with that, especially knowing it has the technical issues.
Yeah,
right. Too. But
oh yeah, and then Fantasy Life also like is in level 5 purgatory, which is
really
like apparently
the new one.
Yeah, it was supposed to come out tomorrow.
Oh dang!
I think maybe not. Maybe that was another one. But either way, like level 5 is apparently like this has been a thing that like people who have been following the developer has like noticed over the past like several years is that things either get indefinitely delayed or like kind of just shut down quietly. And like Fantasy Life was thought to be like a dead series, so when it was announced that they were coming out with a new game, they're like, oh, this is so nice. And like I think there's a Professor Layton game that hasn't come out that was supposed to come out already. There is like I looked up because like in the back of my head I was like, isn't Fantasy Life supposed to be coming out soon? And then I looked and I was like, no, this is not the news I want to see. I don't want to see this.
Yeah, because we talked about that last year, I want to say.
Yeah, either that or at the very beginning of this year. Like I busted out the 3DS and like then they announced it.
And then they right after that, on the Nintendo Direct. Yeah.
Sheesh.
That's why hope springs eternal. I'm the long-suffering Metroid Prime 4 Fantasy
Hey, it's
Life
coming.
sequel.
It's coming.
Ooh.
Sometime next year.
Sometime
before the end of
let's
next
just
year.
go all of them. Come on.
Silk Song. I almost feel like that game's just not even happening anymore at this point. I mean, I feel like it is, but that's just crazy how like silent they've gone on it.
I don't know. If you see how fucking psychotic the fan base is,
they're nuts. They're nuts.
I would not talk to them either.
Like, that's totally fair, actually. That's like, totally fair. Because people go nuts.
One of the most unhinged group of fans I've ever seen online.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's honestly part of the reason that, like, you know, Hollow Knight didn't like fully grab me anyways. Like, I liked elements of it, but I think just like that diehard, like, weird fandom is like almost what like had me like at arm's length at it anyways, you know?
Which is so weird because, like, I don't know. I think the game's great, but I don't understand being weird.
I don't really understand being like that about like any game. To be like, people get like that about Celeste too, like,
and
I'll
Dark
never,
Souls, like
oh yeah,
God,
definitely the Souls games.
Yeah,
there's a lot of that.
I posted this video for this game Germinal, a couple videos, because I did one even like an interview with the developer, and like to be fair, the visual style like looks very much like Celeste. Like they're wearing their influences on their sleeve, and I even like, you know, I even said like, I was like, I feel like, you know, like the only thing kind of holding this game back is the fact that it doesn't have enough of its own like personality visually and stuff. But gameplay wise, and I mean, it's a precision platformer, so I mean, with like kind of a dash mechanic, but they did their own thing. It's kind of more of like a flood, you know, like Super Mario Sunshine kind of thing. You like can use it either as like a jetpack and then or as a double jump, and you have to like kind of ration. You have to have like enough water in the tank to do the double jump.
I like
it. Resets when you land, but like the gameplay was super like it definitely was inspired by Celeste, but doing its own thing. And like, but people even on like that video, that's like one of our very few videos that like got a bunch of like negative comments and like downvotes because people are like, oh, this Celeste ripoff plagiarism. What is this bullshit?
Why? Because it looks like a like 8-bit computer graphics. Yeah, I was like, because that happened before Celeste.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Yeah, I was like,
everybody.
That's not the first. Like, I was like, honestly, if you make a character in this resolution.
Right,
you know what I mean? It's like roughly
that takes up like this much of the screen, like with this aspect ratio, like
But they definitely did, you know, they did a lot of this. Like you got to grab the collect, but they did, you know, like grab the collectible and then you got to land on solid ground. Like, I mean, it definitely was like, you know, it's inspired by it to a T, but so what, man? It's like they're doing their own thing. They're not blatantly ripping it off. It's
right, buddy.
So be it. It's like, is Celeste the first game that had a fucking dash in it?
Let's fucking table this for when I talk about a little game that I'm talking about today.
I don't know what that one would be in reference to.
Oh, save it.
That's right.
Who knows, man? They're delisting everything. What were those Sony games? The Little Big Planet 3. Like, why are they delisting?
Oh, shoot. Really?
Makes no sense. From
That's
the digital
sad.
store.
Yeah, they own all. You would think, well, you know what? Did they put any original
molecule, I think.
Like, did they have licensed music in that game for what that's worth?
They very well could.
Because all the trailers and stuff certainly did. Did that play a role in their cruel decision?
I'm making a jack off motion in my head of like for a reason to delist it. Yeah,
it's awful.
I don't
awful thing to do. Yeah,
like
Sony can afford it regardless, and they own rights to practically all other elements to that.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you're fucking Sony. Like
it seemed like it had something to do with like Media Molecule, but then I was did you read that whole like article, John, or did you just like?
Yeah, but I don't remember.
I just kind of skimmed it too, but I saw that they like apparently they delisted like Horizon Zero Dawn from the PC stores.
What the hell?
And like
in anticipation of them
stuff.
Like re-releasing it with like updated graphics, like it's the whole like patch notes and like living like releases where you can't have an inferior version of a product exist on a digital form. Like it has to be constantly updated. It has to have all of the blemishes removed, all of it like polished beyond belief. And I'm like, I hate this shit so much.
Blemishes as defined by the publisher and developer at that moment.
Yeah, exactly. Because tastes change. It's subjective. People are still fucking like livid over Scholar of the First Sin Dark Souls 2 version, removing some of the features of the original Dark Souls 2. But like,
sure,
I don't know. I've only ever played the Scholar of the First Sin version, so who knows? Like,
oh man.
Yeah, got some good video game talking already. Heck
I know, man. You gotta save it.
Save it for my ass. I did.
DJ did come over to visit. I see.
Yeah.
As soon as it came out of my mouth, I know. Oh, jeez.
Bad influence, that one.